an obnoxiously loud Australian, right? Any... we'll be friends, I can tell. Any other Australians in the room? Any Kiwis in the room? Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah, good. Yeah. We'll be friends too, I can tell. Yes, exactly. Yes, and then plenty, I'm sure, of English in the room, and we'll see if we're friends or not after the rugby finishes tomorrow afternoon. Australia versus England. Look, thank you for having me here. You're right, it's an important day. The Health and Care Act of 2022, though I think you've missed the most important part of the Health and Care Act. Scattered the whole way through it. New duties for trusts, for foundation trusts, for integrated care boards, for NHS England. Yes, doing everything you're talking about, Adrian, of course. But more importantly, surely, kicking back against the US Supreme Court. New duties imposed on the NHS. We're not asking nicely anymore. It is the responsibility in law of the NHS to tackle climate change. It is the responsibility in the legislation to tackle air pollution, to tackle the broader environmental determinants of health, and new statutory guidance powers handed to NHS England and given freely on to boards across the country to take this stuff damn seriously. It's going to be a really, really exciting new era under the New Health and Care Act. Why, what, and how? Okay? It's been a late night, so let's have some really simple things that we might talk about today. Okay? I'm going to be brief because the discussion hopefully will be more interesting. Why would the NHS care about climate change? Why would you hire an Australian to be a Chief Sustainability Officer for the National Health Service? It's really simple. The NHS exists to deliver high quality care for all now and for future generations. You can't go anywhere without seeing it on the footer of the letters we send out, without seeing it on the top of the door. High quality care for all now and for future generations, and it is damn clear that you cannot do that unless you respond to climate change, unless you tackle that head on. Why? What does this mean for the NHS? Well, at the moment there are 11% of our facilities in high-risk flood zones. Now we're prepared for that because they've been there for quite a while, and we have built up the defences, we have trained up our staff, we've made sure the infrastructure is secure. What we aren't ready for is the doubling of that number by 2030. 2030 is in 8 years. What we aren't ready for yet is the tripling of the standard deviation of the duration of fatal heat waves. We've seen what that does with 70,000 deaths across Western Europe in 2003, the highest ever fatality rate in England recorded just last year, breaking the previous 4 records set the previous 4 years. Heat, flood, infectious disease, we have to remind ourselves that malaria was pretty damn common across Europe, across Western Europe, until relatively recently. And indeed then, when Public Health England was Public Health England, found both Aedes aegypti and the Anopheles mosquito in South England, it started to get really quite worried, because Aedes aegypti carries, someone clinical tell me?
Possible.
Sorry?
Possible.
Sure. So the Anopheles carries, between the two of them, Anopheles will carry malaria, got to get damn concerned about that, and Aegypti will carry dengue fever, it will carry yellow fever, it will carry Zika virus, it will carry all sorts of dangerous and nonsense things. In Australia, we hadn't had to worry about endemic malaria for the entire history of Australia's healthcare system. We now have in Queensland healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses trained to recognise endemic malaria and have to make sure that we're stockpiling the right medicines to deal with it. That's why the NHS cares. It cares for that reason, and it cares because it turns out the response to climate change is damn good for public health as well. It turns out that broadly we are talking about cleaner air, more livable cities, healthier diets, more efficient healthcare systems. We're talking about healthier, nicer places for our patients to hang out, to chill, and to get better. The why is simple, the what is simple too then. What do? You run at the problem. If the climate crisis is a health crisis, and we're good healthcare professionals, so we think it is, you run at the problem. For the NHS, this means, you're right, Adrian, net zero by 2040 for the emissions we control directly, and 2045 for our full total global footprint. Those two things are easy to talk about. It's easy to tell you about the science of the problem. It's easy to complain about the doubling of high-risk flood zones. It's easy to make a commitment off in 2045, knowing that probably we won't be around then to be held accountable for it, right? The far, far, far harder thing to do, the far more interesting thing, is to think seriously about what this means for the NHS, not in 2044, not in 2030, but at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, right? How do you start that journey today? So for us, it means all sorts of things. It's damn exciting. It means getting our governance right. The Health and Care Act is the last piece of that puzzle, making sure that we have the full mandate to act on all of the emissions that we need to. It means making sure that as we set up integrated care systems and as we strengthen our trusts and our foundation trusts, they all have their own localized, personalized strategy for what it means to tackle climate change. And we're damn proud to say, as of actually today, every single board in the country has its own net zero strategy, and they all have net zero leads, climate change leads, taking on these challenges. It means investing. It means investing heavily. The NHS's energy bill has increased. It has tripled in the last 6 months. There's a lot going on in the world. It's tripled to £1.5 billion. The NHS's energy bill is big because the NHS is big. It would have gone up 4 times if we hadn't made the investments we've made in the last 2 years alone. We've invested £500 million, drastically improving our estate, drastically improving our energy efficiency, drastically improving our bottom line, right? So why does the NHS care about this? Because of all the reasons from before, but also because it just makes good, common business sense. We can do all of that. We can develop the world's first zero-emission ambulance. It didn't exist until 6 months ago. The NHS has the first and the second. We can conduct the world's first net zero operation up in Birmingham, the world's first delivery, net zero delivery up in Newcastle. All of this in the last 12 months. We can do all of that stuff. We can invest heavily in clinical leadership. We have new fellowship programs bringing the best healthcare professionals from across the country into the system, into NHS England, and thinking seriously about what it means to net zero pharmacy, nursing, occupational therapy. We can invest in innovation, and we are. We've got new competitions out there. If you are a nurse or a doctor or a public health professional with a cool idea out in the system, we've got £15,000. Not a huge amount, but enough to have some fun, enough to get going. What's the criteria? You have to damn mean it. You have to be interested in improving care whilst also tackling climate change. You have to have fun, you have to shout about it, and you have to learn something. Nothing else. We've got bigger sums of money if you're a small business that wants to invest into the NHS and you think you've got a cool innovation that is going to save the NHS some cash and improve care for our patients. And so we run competitions as well with some of the bigger pharmaceutical companies talking about larger sums of money for people that think they have something that's really worth thinking about. Look, we can do all of that stuff, okay? And there you'll hear me talk about fixed and mobile assets, right? About procurement, about the sort of back office side of the NHS. But you guys will know that the NHS is much, much, much more than that, right? It's about the conversations that happen between patients and their clinicians. It's about that therapeutic space, that sort of healing space. It's about all of the different pathways and intricacies of how we run and operate care. And that is not something, loud though he is, that a bearded bureaucrat from Australia can manage. That's only something that 1.4 million healthcare professionals and all of their partners, not just within the NHS, but across local authority, across local places, can tackle, right? That's only something that when every single person, every single part of the NHS thinks seriously, what piece of carbon do I personally hold? What could I personally do, not in 2030, but at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning? When people start to innovate, start to mess around, start to guess, start to have some fun, start to learn something, that then is how the NHS starts to transition. We've got some really cool examples of that. The best examples I've seen of parts of our health service reaching net zero is when that surgeon and the operating theatre staff thought, hey, I wonder if we could really just run at this problem up in Birmingham and see how cool we could go. When the occupational therapists in Manchester thought really seriously about patient access to the trust, thought really seriously about the green space that they needed in their stroke ward. It's when someone identifies a piece of carbon or something that they are uniquely responsible for, uniquely able to act on, and given the space to go and have some fun. That usually is where things have transformed, things have become really damn exciting. You're right, we're not alone. The NHS was the world's first healthcare system to say something big, bold and stupid. We're going to be the first system to get to net zero. 5 seconds later, half a heartbeat later, a couple of heartbeats hopefully later, 17 other healthcare systems said, yeah, okay, that looks tough, but we reckon we could get there. Spain, Belgium, God forbid, 5 of the 7 state departments of health in Australia, the Federal Ministry of Health in Germany, the Ministry of Health and Social Affairs, in France, HHS, even in the United States, setting up new climate change teams to take this stuff seriously. That's what gives me excitement, confidence, that this is no longer something that is going to be fun, positive, just on the sides, but it's starting to become the face of the future direction of healthcare, but only if we have 1.4 million healthcare professionals making 1.4 million low-carbon, high-quality care decisions every single day. Is that okay?